What was the cringiest thing you did in your first relationship? Made an account just so I could finally tell this cringeworthy story. High school girlfriend and I used to make out on her bed with the door locked while her parents were out there under the impression we're studying. Heavy kissing, and at some point she says, "Cut that out, your breath stinks." Start kissing her neck and she slowly wraps her legs around my thigh. Couple minutes later starts breathing heavily. Couple minutes after that her legs tighten around my thigh. Couple minutes after that, she suddenly goes rigid, eyes roll up till I see whites, rapid breathing, exhaling heavily. I panic, and this is my retarded thought process: since all the blood's left my brain, she's choking. I should give her CPR. But, she said no kissing her mouth. So I close my lips around her nose and blow it like a trumpet. She starts coughing immediately, but she's too polite to cuss me out, says she needs a drink of water and leaves the room. We continued to go out for 6 years after that. TLDR, didn't realize GF was having an orgasm, thought she was dying, tried to save her by blowing sewer breath straight into her nose. I am a moron. I lost my virginity to my first girlfriend. I was about 16 at the time and was invited over to stay the night because her dad was on a business trip. I was excited because we have talked a bunch about having sex and I was ready to finally lose my virginity. I get to her house and we are straight to action. She pulls down my pants and my dick is as limp as top ramen noodle. She sucked me off for about 30 minutes until I could get at least half a chub. I put it in missionary and started humping. I didn't really know what to do with my hands, and at the time I knew that people pull hair during sex. So I shit you not, I stare at her missionary position and take 2 handfuls of her hair on both sides and just pull in a downward thrust while I'm humping. I sometimes think of this moment and want to disappear, lol. Fuck, I almost completely erased this memory. So I was young and I had my first boyfriend. We were experimenting sexually and I really wanted him to think my pussy tasted nice, so I would literally rub strawberry fucking flavored lip gloss in my vagina. There's no way he didn't know. I thought it was such a genius idea that I had to share it with my fellow women, so I wrote it down and passed a note in class to one of my friends. It dropped on the floor and all the boys read it and screamed laughing. Strawberry Lips was my new name and I cried for a week. This was with a girl I dated in high school. My dad was getting drunk at a block party, so I got the idea to take his ski boat and go for a romantic boat ride. So we park in the middle of the lake, start making out and stuff. We notice our feet getting wet. The boat was sinking, so I start freaking out, bailing water out with cups, sopping it up with my t-shirt and wringing it out of the boat, just fucking panicking. Right after I accept the fate of my dad's $12,000 inboard motorski boat and calm down, I remember that I didn't put back the drain plug before dropping it in the water, so I replaced it, drove back. TLDR, tried to be cool / get laid with a boat ride, almost sank it. Started dating 3 months before sophomore year ended. Once summer started I completely ghosted her. Skipped to first week of junior year, I thought we were still together. You can imagine how she reacted when I approached her for a kiss. The shame is still real to this day. The letters I've wrote. Oh, those letters. 15-year-old me thought he was deep and romantic. He wasn't. I hope they don't exist anymore. In the 4th grade I wrote anonymous love letters to a boy I liked and left them in his desk. I saw that he threw them away, so I started writing my name on them. He still threw them in the trash. She started to ignore me at school. This was like maybe 1 or 2 weeks after we started dating. I called her house like 6 or 7 times one afternoon after school until her mom picked up, who was basically furious because I had been calling. I explained to her that Alexa was ignoring my calls. I hear in the background, "Alexa, why aren't you answering the phone?" To which she responds, "Because he's weird and he just keeps calling." I hung up the phone and went to my room. I carved her name in my wall with a pen. I still cringe about it to this day. Was walking her home anticipating kissing her for the first time at her doorstep and kept licking my lips because I didn't want to kiss her with a dry mouth. Halfway to her house she looks at me and says stop doing that. I realized I probably looked really creepy. Broke up with her because my best friend told me to. We were perfectly fine together, but I guess I kinda worshipped the guy and his advice. He later tried asking her out when we split. We were all 14 to 15. Fuck. I had honestly forgotten this until I read this question. First date to a movie. We see Titanic. Because that can only end well. We, as horny youngsters, aren't watching the movie, but instead making out and moaning in probably the third row of a packed theater. I'd never made out before, I assumed moaning was involved. Ugh, so cringy and gross. He took me to Olive Garden and bought me that meat lovers lasagna. I'm pretty damn sure that's what it was / is called, and when we got back to his place I wanted to show him how appreciative I was, so I gave him my first blowjob. Turned out I was not ready for that job and threw up the entire lasagna on his penis. God help me, I can't believe I'm finally sharing this story. After I saw Eric propose to Donna on that 70s show, I went out and got a 25-cent ring from the local Pizza Hut and proposed. At school. In front of everyone. I was 16. Edit, I'm glad you all could share a cringe with me. To answer the burning question, she did say yes. We didn't last. Sorry, no happy ending here, just teenagers doing impulsive things. Tried to defend her honor. I got the shit kicked out of me by 3 guys. I earn cred for taking a beating, but she thought we should just be friends after witnessing that. Teeph, there's worse things to have 3 guys beat the shit out of you for. That was a losing battle from the start unless you're some Jackie Chan looking punk lol. We took a break and I posted a video to Creep by Radiohead with the caption for that special someone. Ugh. I almost cringed off my chair writing this. Could have been worse. You could have posted a video to Karma Police by Radiohead with the caption Girls Are Not to Be Trusted. By Kevin. I was 17. We had just had a fight. I drove to his house and blasted Scars by Papa Roach from my car and just stood awkwardly at the end of the driveway waiting for him to come out. I really wish this weren't true. Edit, added context. We were in 7th grade and had been dating for maybe 2 weeks. I printed a marriage certificate and showed it to her the first time she came over to my house. She called her mom and asked to go home immediately. Well, she said that she thought we would be better off just being friends, so I decided that I needed to do some big grand gesture to prove my love. It always worked in the movies, so what could go wrong? I practiced singing the song for weeks on my ukulele and figured that I would wait until after her softball practice was done and surprise her. I sang You're Beautiful by James Blunt. It's a fucking miracle anyone talked to me after that. Edit, getting a lot of questions, so I'll try my best to answer most of them and keep it short. I wasn't a terrible singer, but I wasn't good. It didn't help that I added intentional breaks in my voice to make the song more emotionally powerful or something dumb like that. After I was done and stood in horror as her friends laughed at me and she stormed away, I kind of did a sad George Michael-esque walk in the rain to my car as I contemplated what would be easier, moving school districts or just driving off a cliff. We were not friends after that. It was super embarrassing for her and everyone teased her for months by signing James Blunt songs to her. I definitely had it worse, but high school kids are dicks. It also didn't help that about 2 weeks after we were assigned as lap partners and she raised her hand and asked the teacher if she could switch partners and the whole class snickered. It seems sweet reading the story, but really it was super creepy and I put her in an impossible spot. If anything positive came from it, I never had any troubles approaching women at bars etc. because I already knew what the worst possible thing that could happen was, so it was only uphill from there. I hit my girlfriend with my car. It was a complete accident. We are still friends and it is a story that still comes up in conversation every now and then. After the first date of going to the movies, I never put my arm around her because I was too scared. We sat in my driveway, and she didn't say goodnight because she was waiting for me to kiss her. I did nothing, so she finally kissed me. In defense mode, I lick my lips all the way around with my tongue like Scooby-Doo does with the cotton candy in the theme song intro. I even did the re-he-he-he-he. Kill me. Edit, cleaned up grammar so that y'all would not be able to deduce that we were brother-sister, JK. Yes, this really happened. I was a freshman in high school and she was a junior. I was not ready for this. Kind of creepy on her part, looking back. Thanks for the kind words I woke up to. I'm glad y'all like my story. My first makeout session with someone was with my first girlfriend. We were in her bedroom, turned out the lights and went at it on the floor of her room. After a while I feel something wet on my face. I didn't want to stop, so I just ignored it and carried on. She notices it too and decides to turn on the light because something is really wet on our faces. Light comes on and turns out I'd had a massive nosebleed and there was blood everywhere. I was covered in it, she was covered in it, and there were blood stains all over her room. If that wasn't embarrassing enough, when she went to the bathroom to clean up, her mum caught her in the hallway. She sees the blood and immediately screams. Her assumption was that I was beating her daughter up and I get chucked out the house. Took a long time and explaining for me to show my face there again. Also lost my virginity to the same girl to cool and the gangs celebrate. That was cringy as hell too. I got us matching dog tags with our anniversary on it after dating for around 6 months and would secretly get very sad when he wouldn't wear his. Guilty of this too. After we broke up, he posted a video on Facebook of his friend throwing it in the air so he could shoot it with a gun, LMFAO. I cried a little. Was 17. Edit, I grew up in Mississippi. Super American, country. I was upset when it happened and I didn't even respond to him. Should have saved the video to make a meme, but I don't have a Facebook anymore and it was a long time ago. It was pretty funny looking back. Thanks for all the comments and likes, lol. I was super shy back in the day and I really liked this guy who had weirdly flirted with me in one of our classes. He told me I looked like some random celebrity when I wore my hair down and how hot she was. So I never wore my hair up again for the entirety of school. I replied later by slipping a note in his locker but didn't sign it. A few days after that, I threw in a t-shirt I thought he would like. He didn't know who it was from until weeks later when he finally wore it to school to see if anyone said something. My BFF at the time did and he realized it was me. Super creepy on my end. We ended up dating for a day before we broke up because we were stupid kids. Now, 15 years later, we reconnected and are now married. So, totally worked as planned. A girl that I was about to start dating mentioned she really wanted to go to New Zealand at some point in her life, to a group of people, not even just to me, so I immediately priced plane tickets and lodgings to New Zealand for a honeymoon. Then, unbelievably, before we had actually started dating, I told her I had priced our honeymoon. My defense was that if things did work out, New Zealand was so expensive I'd have to start saving then. We still dated, but only for about 2 months and neither of us have been to New Zealand. I met the love of my life at age 17, aka I started getting my brains fucked out for the first time. She was not shy talking about her prior boyfriend who had a super huge cock that she claimed was very painful. Of course there were other details about their relationship that she shared, too. And she was complicated and we had a lot of fights which I couldn't get my head around. At some point I decided it would be a good idea for him and me to talk and compare notes. So I wrote him a letter proposing this. Mutual friends reported that he was utterly flabbergasted by this. But he approached me and said, "What would you like to talk about?" I think I babbled for 20 minutes after that, but I have no further recollection. Looking back, WTF was I thinking? I was so nervous on the way home. Being 14, his dad drove us to my house to drop me off. I leaned over to kiss him on the cheek. A quick beck and then I threw up his mom's fajitas all over myself. Had my first relationship at age 17. We were each other's first for everything. Basically only ever gave him hand jobs cause he wasn't very hygienic. He insisted on keeping his underwear on so I'd have to rub him over his boxers. He'd come inside his boxers and then leave them on for the rest of the day. The odd time he didn't have boxers on, he'd grab a sock and come inside of it and throw it in the laundry pile. His mom did all the laundry. So disgusting every time I think about it. He French kissed me after eating a bacon double cheeseburger with onions and all sorts of other stinky stuff. I told him I had a bad experience with French kissing with a guy before him. Lies, he was my first kiss obvi, and I would appreciate if he never did it again. Bonus cringe, I rubbed vapor rub near my eyes to make myself cry when I broke up with him and told him I was overwhelmed and needed to focus on school. I was in 8th grade. Back in 8th grade, I could not wrap my head around the obvious signals he was giving me that he was not as into the relationship as I was. I was extremely clingy and would draw doodles of us and write the mushiest notes to him on the daily. I would quiz him on what he liked about me on AIM every night. Fishing for compliments from him constantly. Making up a new pet name every week. My best friend was dating his best friend, who most likely felt the same reluctance due to the intensity, and we would arrange double dates that were mostly me and her trying to find a way to corner the boys and make out, which was extremely creepy behavior, looking back on it. Reading my journal from that year is horrifying. Wish I could go back and apologize for the cringe. If you're reading this, sorry about that shit Mitchy poo. Edit ha good to know I'm not alone in the shame of horrible, obsessive behavior. Since so many asked, I dug up my journal I mentioned from my basement storage, kinda wish I'd actually buried it reading it again. The entry I'm posting seemed to condense how awful I was into a short and terrible package. Plus, 2 bonus stalker-like drawings. To all the Mitches who commented below, thanks for the closure. Was walking her home in our neighborhood. She says her parents aren't home. I say cool, you have the whole house to yourself. And walked back home, wondering if I'd ever get a chance to touch her boobs. Edit, wow, this got a lot more attention than I thought it would. To answer the big question, yes, I did. Eventually. Then we did more and were pretty bad at it. Then she faked a stalker in order to try to drive a wedge between me and my best friend, so I stopped seeing her. Up and down experiences all around, but hey, I got to do stuff to her for a while, once I caught on, haha. We had been texting back and forth so I knew going to his house I would lose my virginity. Dude opens the door wearing a full suit for the occasion and escorts me holding my hand into his bedroom. Jesus Christ. Edit. Thanks for the fun comments, I have been very entertained reading them. To give some context, it wasn't his first time. We had been dating for around 2 months. I was determined and did go through with the deed. And what happened after was way worse than the suit. Dude had apparently told the entire neighborhood he was getting laid, and 3 to 4 of his friends broke into the house through the terrace in the middle of the deed. I promise I'm not making this up. After the whole episode was over, he left to the friend's party without inviting me. So, he wasn't really a gentleman after all as the suit had suggested. A couple days later we broke up. At the time I felt horrible, but now it makes for the juiciest story. First real girlfriend in high school, we used to talk over the voice calls on MSN Messenger late at night. She wanted to just hear my voice, and I very quickly ran out of things to say, so she said I should just read whatever book I had around. She spent the next 30 minutes listening to my Your New Gateway Computer and How to Use It booklet. My roommate finally got her first boyfriend just before her 40th birthday. She sent him flowers at work on her birthday. He cancelled his date with her that night, and I had to stay up all night with her crying. I remember the first time we held hands. She played football on her school team, so I made some comment about how even though I have bigger hands, I still find holding the ball kind of awkward and asked her to show me how she held it. It was an elaborate ruse to make her hold her hand up, so I could compare hand size and not so smoothly lace fingers as we put our hands back down. It was kind of cute, minus the fact that I was sweating so much that she took her hand back 5 seconds later to wipe my sweat onto her pants. She was a good sport and held my hand again though. I wrote the girl a poem. It included the phrase, slightly too large nose and also used the word Kmart. Edit, since there's been a little response to this, I tried to think back on how the poem went. It was something like this: with your slightly too large nose and your great big heart, a love like this can't be found at Kmart. We planned, to the minute, when our first kiss would be. Not too bad, right? We were both nervous and it was both of our first relationships. I made a website with a countdown clock. My first girlfriend had really big tits and I remember sucking and lightly biting her nipples for a long time, and she finally said, "You know, I'd rather kiss you." I overstayed my welcome at the mammary party. I was 17-18, first GF gave me a BJ. I was still a virgin. I kissed her right afterwards, not thinking she's still have a mouthful of cum. Yeah, snowballed. Anyways, this lead her to believe I liked that. So she did it to me repeatedly. Keep in mind this is 93-94, so no internet to realize this isn't normal. I also grew up really fucking sheltered. After about 4/5 months I finally tell her, "Could you spit it out before kissing me?" She responds, "Oh, I thought you liked it, I always thought it was weird." Probably got snowballed 20 times or more in that time period. TLDR, first GF snowballed me. I didn't mention I didn't like it for 4/5 months. Edit, answering some questions. Glad everyone got a laugh. What did I do? You know what I did. I live in infinite shame with where the cum ended up. Why did I kiss her right after? First orgasm with a girl ever at that point. I was in love and did something out of passion. Sex ed was not taught in my household and barely at my school. We weren't having penetrative sex for the first 6 months or so, that's why so much oral. She was petrified at the thought of pregnancy. I grew up with an antenna and 3 channels. No cable, no VCR until I was 15/16. So very little exposure to media at that point. I was basically an invertebrate then. I was terrified of almost everything. That's why I didn't speak up.